In this video, I want to cover something that I've covered a couple of times, but it is Jeffrey Epstein. And the reason I want to cover it this time is to kind of take a look at some of the connections between Epstein and Israel. And I think it's very important because I feel like there's finally been a decent amount of pressure on Gaza. And so this is just something that happened in the last couple of days, which are very interesting and kind of further tie those two things together. And showing that it's possible that the reason why we are bombing or supporting Israel and bombing Gaza is because of possibly Jeffrey Epstein. So I'm going to cover breaking points. They take a look at it, they cover it, but then I want to add my insight to it as well.
Let's turn over to the Epstein story. We've got a couple of new updates here. We have Trump reiterating the Epstein Files. It's a Democratic hoax and it's total bullshit. Let's take a listen.
The two Kevins, very good.
Mr. President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the
I like how it's for what? What are you saying? Yeah, of course I don't want to talk about that.
Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a report today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
So I'm kind of two minds on this one, right? I did see some stuff that actually it was possibly fake, but the thing is, would I 100% believe that if they're not doing it now, have they done it in the past? Especially considering how poorly they fumbled it at the onset, right? Where they're going back and forth, Pam Bondi saying all the files are on my desk, the list is on my desk, and then, going back and there is no list, and basically all the flip-flopping that has happened. Would it make sense that all of them would get together or have gotten together, sat down and said, this is the direction, this is the message, this is what we're doing when it comes to Epstein? There is no question in my mind that if there are not regular meetings between all of the heads of the people who are most, I guess, essential to that whole plot line, if you think that there aren't meetings between all of them regularly, I think you're completely out of your mind. I think that it's probably their number one priority of things where they need to get their story straight on, especially considering what has been happening with Epstein. So again, him dismissing it, yes, there might not be a specific one planned in the way that they're talking about it, right? Where they're saying, oh yeah, there's one coming up, but there could be like a recurring meeting or something like that. And would it surprise me? No, absolutely not.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country, and that's
and that is also a laughable statement. I don't think so at all. I think, in my take on it, and I'll say, again, looking at both sides, still better than the alternative, but I think a lot of things have not went as well as I think people would have objectively wanted it to. I think we're still in two wars by proxy. We're still funding both of them. I think there's just a lot of stuff. I think that's a huge one, right? I think Epstein itself, right? There's no real resolution around that. Yes, I do think the Dems are implicated in it. Like, why would it be a hoax? This is the thing that doesn't make any sense about it when he says that it's a hoax to me, is that when you're saying it's a hoax, how is it a hoax when they're implicated in it as well? I mean, the two people who I think are most implicated is Bill Clinton, right? Because he went to the island like 47 times or something insane. So like he's completely implicated in it. And then also Bill Gates, who is like, someone that I think the left still loves. I don't really know. I don't really hear them championing him all that much anymore. But I mean, his wife basically broke up with him, probably because she found out that he was doing inappropriate things with children. And those are two both extremely left-aligned people. So again, laughable to me that it's the Democrats who, they are just, it's a total hoax that they're putting, like, that doesn't even make any sense. So, okay, I don't know what to make of that. I don't know how that even carries water.
Just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit.
Total bullshit. That's his line. The Epstein Files trying to divert attention. Apparently that's the media and not the actions of the Trump administration. Okay. That was also, by the way, JD Vance was responding to a story, which we'll return to in a little bit, where there was some story reported by CNN that they were going to convene some grand Epstein meeting of the principals to figure out how they were going to handle it. But we couldn't help but flag this from the Times of Israel. Our friend Glenn Greenwald was able to find it. Let's go and put this up there on the screen, shall we? So here we have a rabbi. He's a blogger for the Times of Israel. Yosef how would you say that? Yanoski? All right, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Trump and his administration criticized Netanyahu and Israel, he writes. Quote, and now the Epstein Files are haunting him. For a long time, the files had subsidized in the background, but they were considered to be a much more threat to Trump. All of a sudden, right after he started up with Israel, the files surfaced, and they seemed to be overwhelming him, he writes. He continues, now some old files are threatening him. Perhaps Trump will realize that it really doesn't pay to start up with Israel, because when by divine providence, things that were hidden become revealed, it enables people to correct their mistakes and to endeavor to live their lives properly, the way God, with a dash, wants them to.
So this is the thing that I think is very interesting and why I'm covering it, is because when you look at this, think about some of those leaks that have been coming out recently, right? Think about the birthday book, right? Where they're essentially... there was Trump's, and that was the first one that came out, was Trump's, basically, Trump created a page in the birthday book with the weird poem and the drawing and the, all that kind of stuff, right? This raises my eyebrow to say, did it come out from Israel? Did Israel leak it? Which again ties back to the original, or one of the theories around it, that basically Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad, basically working on behalf of Israeli intelligence. And so this makes me believe that this guy may be tied into it, and now he could just be pissed off and like, oh yeah, because he talked, bad about Israel, this is coming out because God is intending for it to, and he's being punished. But it also could be read 100% that this is happening and Trump has to go along with what we're saying and what we want to do with, basically anything that we say, including Gaza, which would make a lot more sense why we're continuing to just carte blanche, support them. They can do whatever they want and we're not going to stop. Because if we wanted to stop it, we could stop it tomorrow. Just stop sending them aid. They can't do anything without our aid. And so that's the part of it, is with this, it's very eyebrow raising. Why do we keep sending them aid? Well, if you're implicated and the moment that you even say something negative, they slip out, oh, here's this entry from Trump in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book. If they're the ones that, again, the timing is fairly interesting on this, and that's what kind of made me, raise an eyebrow and that's very interesting, and that's why I wanted to cover it. This is blatantly coming out and saying it, and saying that the leaks are coming out because of Trump being negative towards Bibi Netanyahu and towards Israel. just something to keep in mind, something to keep an eye on, and very interesting.
Okay. All right. Let's listen. I mean, I sometimes appreciate when people say things out loud, but
Incredible.
I mean, all right, let's give the caveat. It's a blogger in the Times of Israel. I will say I think it's crazy that they even published it, just to be fair. Like, even to make that sort of accusation. What does he know? Well, it fits with a broader pattern of evidence. I know Ryan and Emily covered the photos from the Epstein story from the New York Times a couple of days ago, but there were some specific Israel connections in there that I think are very important. Let's go ahead and put this next one, please. So this is from Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel. I've talked a lot about his relationship there with Epstein. Flew on the jet a number of times, stayed at Epstein's residence. Whenever he was photographed going into the Epstein residence, tried to cover up his face, received millions of dollars from Epstein via the Wexner Foundation, as well as an investment into his defense startup company in 2015. Well, apparently Ghislaine, or whatever, Epstein's staff, always would compile these birthday messages to Jeffrey Epstein. So here, 2016, so, you know, years after Epstein is a registered sex offender, here's what Ehud Barak writes in his birthday message to Epstein. Quote, "There is no limit to your curiosity. You are like a closed book to many of them, but you know everything about everyone." I would also be remiss if I didn't read this one from Mortimer Zuckerman, one of the most powerful, media figures. Who said, quote, "Suggested ingredients for a meal that would reflect the culture of the mansion. A simple salad and whatever else would enhance Jeffrey's sexual performance." Next, apparently, let's go to the next one, please, B3. Well, Epstein apparently had a preserved map of Israel signed by Barak in his New York mansion. As I say here, apparently there was also a signed bill from Bill Gates. There were literally visible cameras in the bedroom, a first edition copy of Lolita, which has got to be one of the creepiest things I've ever read. Oh. And then photos with some of the richest and most powerful people. I would be also remiss if I didn't flag. There were a number of Israel firsters who were very mad at me for flagging the fact that he had a map of Israel. And they were like, why didn't you talk about his pictures with MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia?
And that's the other interesting thing, right? Because some of those, like the pictures and stuff, have been leaked. That was another one of the things that was leaked that I saw just in the last few days, was pictures from his Manhattan apartment or whatever, his suite, his penthouse. And that was what it was pictures of him. One of them was with Trump, which again makes me curious, like, okay, how did these get out, right? But then a lot of them were these other things where, it was all the people who he has pictures with. One of them was that dollar bill from Bill Gates, which was a bet, right? It was actually written on and signed by Bill Gates, a $1 bet. And then, yeah, there's just all these people, and it was very strange. And that was, again, another something that had come out recently that was very interesting, that was targeted towards Trump and having a close tie with Jeffrey Epstein, which is not particularly surprising because we already knew. I mean, there's videos that are out there, but if it's something else that's being leaked because Israel is getting pissed off at Trump, well, there you go. There's something else adding to this story.
Or one of the powerful sheikhs in the UAE. And I'm like, that's not the own that you think it is, because what it does is confirm the arms deal connections that I've talked about now and why it makes him a Mossad asset. Well, so you're actually proving my point. The fact that he had high-level connections to the Saudis proves my point that he was connected to Adnan Khashoggi, and that verifies that he was somebody who was dealing in shadowy arms trafficking networks and probably was involved in things like, or at very least, like tangentially knew the principal actors involved in Iran-Contra and in funneling weapons between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Oh, sorry, that's right.
And that is interesting in that, yes, a tie to Israel and then the map of Israel with the, at the time, Prime Minister's signature on it. I mean, again, it just, none of it is directly implicating, right? You can't 100% say he's nailed on it, but lines on a graph, they're all pointing in one way.
So not the own that you think it is.
Not to mention, like, these people never go and check and see if you've criticized Saudi or like.
Yeah, that's right.
As if we don't criticize Saudi Arabia here. As if you haven't criticized like Qatar and UAE. Like, go look at our coverage and be relieved that don't worry, it's not only the Israelis that we criticize. But Sagar, don't worry. We can put the next piece up on the screen because Ghislaine Maxwell, in her Queen for a Day limited immunity meeting, she says Trump did nothing wrong.
Oh, okay.
And she is a very trustworthy source, and I'm sure not at all just telling the Trump administration what they want to hear so that she can get her, her move over to the Club Fed in Texas and potential pardon down the road. I'm sure that's not what's going on here at all.
Yeah, and if you're not aware, you haven't been following this story that closely. Yeah, Ghislaine, basically, the second in charge at the DOJ went to go meet with her, had a sit-down meeting, and then obviously this came out. She's saying Trump never did anything concerning around her. But that, I mean, at this point, this is the thing that is so insane about even trying to believe this. Because even if I want to believe that he did nothing, which, I guess you could make some sort of argument about that. The problem is that the incentive for her, like, she gets to go to a minimum security prison versus where she was being held. She can try and basically, position herself to get a pardon and what's all the incentive in the world? If she says this and she plays ball with Trump, even if he did something, well, she can get off scot-free. And the thing with that is, like, I don't know how anyone can believe anything that happens from here on out in the story unless it comes out and Trump is completely implicated and he gets caught red-handed. And the only way I could see that happening is if he pisses off Israel by saying, because it gets so unpopular here that we want to stop, like, we need to completely cut off Israel. We're not supporting them anymore. And then, by the way, they get so pissed off that they just release all the videos, if there exist any, with Trump in them. That would be the only way. If he does this whole sweetheart deal and she says that he's not implicated at all, and because she wants to save her own hide, like, if you could get out of jail by lying, do you think she's going to lie? Yeah, I think she's going to lie. Like, what person who's even mildly intelligent isn't going to believe the same thing? So, like, I don't know how you can believe any of this at the same time, at this point anymore. It's just insane to me. So that's my problem with this headline.
I mean, it's just insane that they actually think, well, I shouldn't say that, because you know what? A lot of Trump's biggest supporters will actually believe it.
Oh, yeah, they will.
They will actually take this as a, look, see, Ghislaine said it's fine. They're reportedly considering releasing the transcripts from the interview so that they can try to exonerate Trump.
I mean, I would be for it, no matter what. I still think we need transparency in the case, but this is not, I've said it before, this is why you need a special prosecutor behind the deal so that there's no obvious political influence on what she is or is not saying. It may be true, but why would anyone actually trust what she has to say when she's genuinely gambling for a pardon and is already receiving special treatment? By the way, do you know what the current strategy apparently is for how to launder all of this? It's not to actually release the Epstein Files. It's this. Let's go and put this next one. I love this. Senior Trump administration officials, quote, are reportedly looking at using Joe Rogan to help tackle the lingering fallout from the Epstein crisis. So
I think this is hilarious because there's no way. There's no way. I mean, if you've heard Joe Rogan talk about previously, like when he had Kash Patel on, I just don't think he's going to have him on, period, anymore. Because if you think about before he had Trump on, he was saying that there is no way that he was going to ever have Trump on because he didn't want to provide him with the ability to, reach out to his audience. And I feel like he had him on before the election because, and supposedly he said he would have Kamala on as well. So, and they turned it down, but he wanted to have both of them on. But I think he gave him the option to come on because I think he was concerned about what Kamala was going to do, and that's why he threw his weight behind Trump. But I think now, in having listened to his points of view on, what Trump is doing in deporting immigrants, right? He's not a fan of how that's being handled. He's definitely not a fan of, what's going on, in Israel and in Gaza and the Ukraine and all these places. And, so he's been very critical about these sorts of things. So plus the way he talked about when Kash Patel, he's like, I know Kash Patel is lying, and like, what am I going to say? He's just going to stonewall, and like, I'm not going to get an answer. And then it was pretty early in the interview, so he's probably going to shut down, and I don't get to talk to him about anything else. And so that's the thing, is I don't think Joe Rogan would be amenable to having any Trump administration on, just because I think he's completely fed up with them. So the fact that they want to go out and have him, I don't think A, you would want to be on there, because I think he would be more hostile. But then B, I don't think that's the type of podcast that he likes to have. And so I just think he would completely say, I'm not going to have them on at all. But that's just my take on it.
They noticed that Joe said that the Epstein stuff was, quote, a line in the sand in terms of the way that they were, in terms of the way that it was all being handled and covered up by the Trump administration. So their theory is to send the deputy attorney general on the show to go and basically talk about all of the handling. They would rather do that than release any of the Epstein files. Now, I actually am not so sure that Joe would even have them on at this point without the release of the files, because the Kash Patel thing was such a disaster.
Yeah.
And he was like, I knew it was bullshit at the time. I didn't even really know what to say. And he's like, and the way that it's all handled afterwards, he's like, this is just the most insane shit that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So maybe in some ways, here, let's agree to this. Todd Blanche can go on. Bring on Dave Smith or somebody else.
Yeah.
Bring me a Coffezilla, anybody, all right? Have some.
Yeah, I think one of those would be really good, because they are a lot better at being confrontational, and they both are fairly heavily invested in the Jeffrey Epstein news cycle, right? They both have been covering it fairly heavily. So I think having exactly who Sagar is saying here, either Dave Smith or Coffezilla. Joe obviously is very close with Dave Smith, so that would make sense. He's had him on multiple times, especially to talk about very high-profile things that have been going on around politics, political stuff, because Dave Smith has his own, essentially like political news show where he gives his opinion on it. But then Coffezilla has been super in on it, and Joe has had him on in the past as well, and I think it would be, that would be a good option as well. But yeah, I don't think it would be just bring him on and provide him with a platform to just kind of, spit out whatever propaganda nonsense that they could bake up before going on there. I think it would have to be a much more combative interview, which I think is entirely possible if they try and go on there. Not that I think that they would agree to that at all, because I'm sure Joe would tell them right off the rip, look, this is how we're going to structure it. There is going to be an additional person. And I highly doubt that they would be interested in that type of a setup.
Somebody else on who knows something about the case, let them sit across and be like, okay, let's talk. Let's go.
Because as Kash was spinning his bullshit, I mean, it became an infamous moment.
It's crazy.
No doubt.
Insane.
And you could tell that Rogan was like, really?
Was like, wait, what? Yeah.
But then after the fact, he made this comment, Rogan made this comment that was like, what was I supposed to do? Push back? And it's like, well, yeah, you could do that. You could do that when he's sitting there.
He probably it is such in the weeds that if you don't know, it's very easy to be bullshitted. And I mean this too from the FBI case and from the way the FBI handles it. And I've done this before, going back and forth with the people who are skeptics or others.
And the thing is, though, about Crystal's point of like, yeah, you should push back, is that's not really what his show is, though. I mean, his entire style as an interviewer, like I think Breaking Points does this well, where they will actually get combative with people, where like if I know you're BSing me, I will get combative with you. But Joe Rogan is completely different from that. And so, if you understand his style of interviewing, and he just asks the question and he lets people go, and then you make up your mind on that answer, what they said in that answer. So like that's not really how he likes to do it. And he has kind of done it in the past where he pushes back on something that he says is, or he thinks is wrong. But most of the time, that's not how he operates. And he doesn't like to do it, to Sagar's point here, on something that he's not 100% sure on. Like, the things that I've seen him push back on the hardest in the past is like UFC stuff, where he's, one of the main commentators for it. Drug, weed, because he's a huge fan of weed, although he has calmed down on that recently, right? He kind of lets people have their own opinions on it, because he has been brought around that, yes, it might not be for everyone. There have been people who have had psychological breaks on it. But those are like the two things that I've ever seen him like aggressively push back on someone on. Like, it's very few things that he does. And that's the thing, is that in that instance, that's just not how he runs his show. So like, it's just, yes, I would have liked to have seen him push back when Kash Patel was on there, because I think that's the thing, is like, you got him caught in the moment. He doesn't have any chance to like build out a story. Like, he has to come up with an excuse right there and then. And he's tap dancing on ice. Like, this could go very poorly for him. And that's where you can really string him out on the coals and get better answers, because it was right as the Elon tweet came out, or X post came out, and he called him a pedophile. Trump is in the Epstein Files. That's why it's not getting released. And so he had him on the spot and like, hey man, like, what's going on with this? So like, he really could have grilled him. It would have been a great opportunity, but that's just not what his show is, unfortunately, in this circumstance.
In general, they just don't know what they're talking about.
I mean,
yeah.
I
no,
guess,
I'm not defending.
Like,
I think he should have pushed back. I agree with you.
Rogan has covered this. Like, it's not like it's some side issue that he hasn't thought about before.
Totally.
He does know a lot of details with regard to this. So in any case, I don't know, even if they have Todd Blanche on with him.
Yes.
And even if he doesn't bring in someone for backup, which I don't think they would agree to anyway, but even if he doesn't do that, like, I still don't know that would go well for the Trump administration at this point, because like, you've blown it. It's over. No one's going to trust you on this. It's done. People believe, rightfully so, that there's a cover-up. I mean, we know the reporting. His name was in the files. His name was flagged in the files. His name was redacted from the files. Like, we know it was there, and know, like, oh, well, Ghislaine Maxwell says that he's all clear, is going to assuage those concerns at this point. Like, basically, the ship has sailed.
Yeah, and that's a good point, too, is that, yeah, you would basically have to have a completely unredacted version released. And that's the point that I would make on it, that, that she's bringing up, is, yeah, with the whole Ghislaine thing that we were talking about, where, yes, it's, she's probably angling to get a pardon. Well, now we need to see the unredacted. Because if you've taken Trump's name out of it, well, guess what? We don't really, how are we supposed to trust that? And so literally anytime if they do release it totally redacted, anytime I saw a name that was blacked out and like something horrible, in the vicinity, I'm going to assume Trump is there. And I think every American who, again, has half of a brain and isn't completely, being led astray and blind and allowing themselves to be led blind, they're going to come to the same conclusion, and it's not going to look good for you. So I don't think they want to release it, and I think it would be a lot more combative if Rogan even let them on.
And probably politically, their best move is to just try to stop talking about it and try to change the subject.
Oh, absolutely. And then they already apparently believe that it's, it's quote, dying down. I would not, this is where I really believe Republicans have a Twitter problem, because it used to be the left had a Twitter problem, right? It was the echo chamber, and people thought that was representative. I now think the opposite, where people spend way too much time on Twitter, which is, the algorithm and everything, MAGA, etc., obviously dominates on on the platform. It's like, spend some time on some of the other social media platforms, all right? Go type in Epstein on YouTube, which is way bigger than Twitter and used by billions of people. I can even show I look at our demographics. A lot of the people who watch those videos, they're not foreigners, they're Americans. So I know that they're citizens at the very least. And guess what? There's a lot of interest in the story.
Yeah, and there will continue to be. I will continue making these videos until something happens. Like anytime anything comes out like this, right? This is, again, very interesting with the, the blog coming out in the Israel Times about how Trump should have, been supportive of Israel because now he's being, that's why things leak out. Yeah, I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to continue covering anything that's interesting about it, because, again, where do you draw your line? Is pedophilia okay to you? Is a, child sex ring being run by intelligence, possibly CIA, possibly Mossad, possibly both, right? Maybe they're both in on it, who knows? Are you okay with children essentially being whisked away under the age of 18 and had to have relations with older men? I mean, I don't know how anyone can be okay with that. And the fact that all of this isn't coming out immediately, everyone, and I made the point before, everyone needs to keep talking about it and keep hammering the point home until everything gets released and people are put in jail. It's just where you draw your line.
From me, not just from us, all over the internet, from Alex Jones to Coffezilla to anybody else. I mean, my episode with Tucker Carlson, the only person who's beat me recently is Candace, apparently. So, can't compete with Brigitte.
You got to do a transvestigation.
Yeah, I got to do a transvestigation. Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you look at the number of views and other things for people who are informed and are skeptical on the case, I'm talking literally millions, tens of millions, if you count up just over the last couple of weeks. They recognize that in the election as supposedly, powerful and all of that. But now, they think it's dying down because their MAGA activists or whatever on Twitter aren't talking about it. Listen, guys, that is not even one,
And that's the other part of, in my last video, why I said, yes, we need to keep hammering home on this over and over. Anytime you see one of these, MAGA influencers try and move on from it, literally just release the list. Just one comment, release the list, copy paste it over and over and over and over again, because if the administration is not feeling the pressure from it, they're going to think it's going to be okay to move on from this story, which I think is completely inappropriate. And I think that's what needs to happen, is you need to keep hammering home on this so the influencers know, and it shows up to, basically it's going to be a bottom-up funnel where we keep demanding that things need to be talked about. The influencers are going to have to say something, and then it's going to funnel upwards, and then the administration's going to see it, and then that's how you're going to get something released. Other than that, they're just going to say exactly what he's saying. We don't see it anymore. They're moving on to the next thing that we've brought up, the next story, and we're just going to move on from it, and we don't care. And we think we're free and in the clear, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Iota representative of reality.
I don't know if they even really believe that either, though, because to me, the fact, I know you and Ryan did a great job covering like the gerrymandering story.
Yeah,
that represents a freak out.
Yeah,
of like, oh shit, we're gonna
lose. Yeah,
and the Democrats are gonna have some subpoena power, and we could be hosed.
Yep.
Like this could be actually bad for us, because I don't think Trump really cares about Republican control outside of how it directly personally impacts him. But with this story, and with Democrats like Ro Khanna and others smelling blood in the water, yeah, this could be a real problem for him. So to me, that was them pulling the fire alarm of oh shit,
yes,
how can we rig this election so that we don't end up with a large Democratic majority that can basically do whatever they want, in terms of subpoena power investigations, et cetera, after the midterms. So I think they, on some level, do recognize that they're in big trouble with this. And then the other thing it assumes is that there are no more revelations, which is a big assumption because the media also smells blood in the water.
Which is also a good point, because again, going back to the reason that I wanted to cover this video at all was if things come out because Israel gets pissed off because Trump says something negative about what they're doing, or whatever, he's not supporting them at the maximalist amount, well, guess what? Then things might continue leaking. And that's a very good point on this, is that yes, 100%, it could be very well that additional things come out because of exactly that. And so, yeah, thinking that you can move on. The problem with him trying to cover it up is that additional parties probably have way more information. And at a certain point, where does Israel say we're happy to release all the information and just nuke any blackmail that we have on anyone else to get what we want done? Or, we don't see it getting done, so we're just going to nuke the entire thing, and then Trump's completely going to be... Because here's the thing, right, is if it was something run by Mossad, they have all the videos. They have everything. So if Trump was with an underage girl at all, even once, they have a video of it. Like, Israel has a video of it hidden away. Mossad has a video of it hidden away. And so, yes, the problem is if you go scorched earth, you completely destroy your ability to have blackmail on anyone else, because you have to, everything is basically going to have to get dumped, right? It's basically your break glass in case of emergency scenario. And so if they do that, you can't use that play ever again. It's not going to work because everything's going to come out, right? Because how many people do you think Trump knows that he's going to take down with him? If you don't think he's that petty, I guarantee you he's that petty. So the issue is with that is that you can only use that once, but once is maybe all you need. Because the other thing is too that you have to think about, and it could come out anytime in the next 4 years. I'm not saying that's going to be immediate that it happens, but who's to guarantee that the next president that gets in is implicated in anything? So you may only have dirt on Trump. So and there could be a shelf life, right? Unless they have it back up and someone else is running the whole thing, right? There is no guarantee that the next person that gets elected is going to have any blackmail from Israel on them or from the Mossad on them. And so you might not be able to get the U.S. I mean, granted, they give a bunch of money through AIPAC to a bunch of people. But the thing is also is that I think the American people are starting to sour on Israel overall. And so he needs to hit the go button right now, or, Israel needs to basically leverage this. And if Trump doesn't do everything they say, well, then this may, sometime in the next 4 years, it may all come out and take Trump down. Because again, there is no guarantee that the next person that gets elected is going to have the blackmail. And this may be the only time for Israel to get everything that it wants, whatever that is, whatever they think they can get with the support of the U.S. This may be their time to act, and that's why they're going so hard with bombing Iran and bombing Syria and bombing Lebanon and completely leveling Gaza. And then I just saw today that now they're saying that they're fully occupying Gaza. This may be what they see as like their last chance, and that's why they're acting so erratically. Is because we have the blackmail. We only have 3.5 years to get everything that we want done. Go.
And you may have whistleblowers inside of the federal government who are not too happy about the cover-up that's being effectuated. You never know what's going to come out of the woodwork. So if you're assuming there are going to be no more revelations, and we've got this under control. And then the other big question is, what do they ultimately do with Ghislaine? Because if they give her a pardon, I mean, that is so disgusting. I just can't even, it's so disgusting. This is a horrific person. The fact even that she got this move to Club Fed in Texas is disgusting. And apparently, we can put B6 up on the screen here. NBC News saw some message from an ex-BOP official who said that this move to this cushy prison camp is a, quote, travesty of justice. One person wrote on the Bureau of Prisons staff and retirees Facebook page, quote, as a retired BOP employee, this makes me sick. Since when are sex offenders allowed at the camp? Another wrote, I don't care who she snitched on, she is a damned human trafficker. In the private Facebook group, a member who identified themselves as a staffer at the Florida facility where Maxwell had been held said they weren't going to miss her, however, quote, glad to be rid of her. She is an absolute pain in the ass. But this is what they're pointing to here is sex offenders are not supposed to be, period, at all.
At federal prison camps.
In these federal prison camps where it's, I mean, listen, I'm sure being in prison sucks, even at the nice prison, but it's a much better deal. You can roam around the grounds. There's not like the giant, the barbed wire fence is like a lower fence. It's also much less secure. So if she wants to get out or someone wants to get at her, she's much more vulnerable and exposed. There's a lot more programs available. There's a lot more sort of autonomy
that's where it becomes a very dangerous game for Ghislaine, is that when she went back in, right, it was also seen that she was carrying like a big heavy box of a bunch of her belongings. And so, yes, she's playing ball, but to the point that is being made right here, it is a lot lower security. So if Jeffrey Epstein 2.0, if she starts getting sad and, offs herself, there's a much higher percentage chance of that happening here. And also, by the way, all the cameras go out and all the guards are asleep, and she went to this lower security prison, and it just happened that's what happened here. Real convenient if that happens twice to both Jeffrey and Ghislaine. Real convenient.
It's offered. Elizabeth Holmes is there. I mean, this is like where, it's the type of place Martha Stewart would be sent to. White collar type of criminals, that's who's typically there. Sex offenders are not supposed to be there. So I think the other possible political fallout is if Trump continues to cater to Ghislaine Maxwell.
But that also is less likely to this point, because again, if it is all white collar, and by the way, like they're going to be less violent, so there's less chance of it occurring because of that. But if Trump is just trying to snub her out, we got the recorded with the second in charge at the DOJ, we have that whole transcript, we're going to release that. And then, by the way, we're going to sneak in some planted criminal to basically take her out. Could that be on the table? I don't know. It just seems like something that could be possible if they want to make sure that she never talks again.
And cater to her desire to get out of any prison at all. There will be political fallout from that as well, because no one is buying that she's just exonerating him and there's nothing to see here. If he lets her out, if he gives her a pardon, or the government drops their, opposition to her appeal at the Supreme Court, and she is set free, everyone is going to conclude from that it's because she had the goods on him and he had to cut a deal to make sure that she stayed quiet. So, I think if they are deluding themselves to believe that this is over, this is quieted down, that they've handled it, it's not at the sort of existential fervor that it felt for a moment, but that can change on a dime like that.
Yep.
All right, so that essentially covers what I wanted to. Again, very interesting seeing that connection where literally printed in the Israel Times, hey, stuff is coming out because of Trump being critical of Bibi Netanyahu. So when you're looking at those things, again, very interesting to me, and I think it'll be, it'll be curious to me to see how Trump continues to progress through his term and what kind of support he is giving to Israel. Because if it was actually Israel who leaked these things, you best believe someone in the administration saw that article and brought it to Trump's attention. So when you see that and then you say, this is maybe where it came from, Very, very interesting. And again, when you're tying it into what's going on in Gaza, why are we supporting it as the U.S., right? I think no average citizen wants what's going on there to continue. But it just is, it's so sad because we obviously have no say in the matter. I mean, I think it's like an 80% that, 80% of U.S. citizens think that it needs to stop immediately. And, the humanitarian aid that's being used to essentially shell civilians that are trying to get food, that are starving to death, all these things continue to happen over there. And again, I just tie it to, why are we doing it? Oh, well, if the Mossad/Israel has dirt on Trump being directly implicated, well, then he's going to go along with whatever they want to do. And that's not something that's not America first, which is so funny because that's what Trump claims to be. But again, just wanted to kind of cover this topic because, again, I think collectively everyone needs to keep talking about Epstein until we get a full disclosure on it, until people are behind bars. And tying these two things in together, I think it's becoming increasingly more clear the more we learn and the more that little scraps come out like this, that 100% these are not independent things. They're very close together, and if you care about one, you should 100% care about the other. So if you like the coverage that I provide here, feel free to leave me a thumbs up. If you want to help the channel grow, subscribe down below. And if you have made it this far, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.